All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy Sunday, everybody. I know it's been a little bit of it's been like a couple
hiatus,
of weeks.
a sabbatical.
But I am in my busiest time of the year. Luke's been very busy as well, and I'm glad that we finally have some Star Wars content to get to. We have just an unbelievable set of Star Wars stuff that we're going to get through in the next month. Today, we're hitting the two Tales of the Empire stories.
Yeah.
This particular video is going to be primarily focusing on Morgan Elsbeth and her story. Then after that, we're going to record about Barasafi and her journey through Fortress Inquisitorius, which we'll go through in a separate video. And then after that, we're going to give our thoughts on the Acolyte trailer, which I have all sorts of theories and shit for that. But we're less than a month away from the Acolyte premiering too. So we are hitting the jets now. We've got a whole Star Wars book that we're going to cover probably next week called Revan. And we'll do a full synopsis like we usually do for our Star Wars books that we cover. But yeah, so we went through we went through Shogun, which we really enjoyed. And there's apparently going to be a season 2 of Shogun.
I know. That one commenter can suck it.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
But that's the thing. We're going to get a second season of Shogun. That's cool. So that's coming. We have House of the Dragon coming this fall, or this late summer. But time to take a break and get back into Luke and I's wheelhouse. Our favorite thing in the world.
Star Wars, baby.
Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're gonna get back into our wheelhouse for a little bit. So let's start with Morgan Elsbeth. So basically, the story opens up with her on Dathomir watching the Separatists just completely mess up her people. And one of the things I thought was fascinating about that immediately was, we always think about the damage that the Empire has done to worlds, but we the actual Clone Wars themselves put these worlds through hell. Yeah, and Grievous and the Separatists just basically eviscerated, and it was straight up genocide. They just tried to wipe. They tried to wipe the Night Sisters off the face of the earth. That was pretty nasty.
How cool is Grievous?
Did you know that
he was incredible?
Were you guessing the third lightsaber was going to come out when they killed Morgan's mom?
But I mean, she should have been ready for it.
She should have been ready for it. Yeah, because he was doing the 2 lightsaber dance, and she had her blades out, and I'm literally any minute now we're just going to hear another lightsaber turn on, and then just right through the chest.
It was so classic Grievous. And one of my favorite things about him is the fact that he always has Jedi's lightsabers, right?
Yes.
So the fact that he's using a green or a blue lightsaber just makes it so much better.
Oh yeah. And this is where I want to shout out, these stories are not huge stories in the Star Wars universe. They're not going to move the needle in some big way. But as a Star Wars fan, I watched all 6 of them that day. And Carly was working from home that day, so she's sitting next to me, and she kind of started watching, especially the Barasafi one. And I just looked over at her and I was like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was super palatable.
I just got to have more Star Wars content, even if it's not necessarily the biggest storyline in the world. I enjoyed just some new Star Wars content.
Well, and it truly was new because I wasn't aware of the Dathomirians sharing Dathomir, right? I wasn't aware of the Night Sisters having to share Dathomir with other
tribes,
other than the brother.
Yeah,
the brothers,
it makes
right?
some sense, right?
The Mountain Clan or whatever they're called. Yeah, I had no clue.
And clearly, they're Force users in their own right.
Yeah. It was blue and red, right?
Yeah.
Blue, it was very Pokemon-esque.
Yeah, and didn't it kind of feel a little less dark?
Yes.
When they went to the mountain tribes, that was
way more
cool
tones, right? It was more icy feeling, obviously. But
and and the Night Sisters are very much dark, right? So Morgan Elsbeth watches basically as General Grievous kills her mom, and all of the Night Sisters get demolished, and she
was
escapes.
Cackling too.
Yeah,
the
classic kind of a breathy, gargly talking.
Yeah.
So then Morgan Elsbeth disappears into the mountain, and she ends up meeting this clan, and she wants to fight back. She ends up dragging a couple of the children out, even though it's against their culture.
Right.
And I took that as just basically the first kind of indicator, because Morgan Elsbeth is kind of a scumbag. She just is.
Right.
I think they're trying to explain why.
Yeah.
And it's out of this survivalist mixed with revenge.
Dude, and they did such a good job too, just because the way that they manipulated her facial features, even when she was super young, she didn't really look that evil, right? And then as things went on and on and on, you just found out, she's totally evil. She'll do anything in order to survive.
It was opportunistic. Yeah. It's
opportunistic. A true product of the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, and if you're a child and you watch your family get murdered,
that's a tough watch.
And you're automatically you're not going to be the most sympathetic person in the world. You're
No.
probably going to be more like, I don't care if I hurt you as long as I survive.
Right.
And like,
Right.
I think it's that. And then there certainly is the revenge element, which takes us into the second episode, which I thought was my favorite personally. So it starts
Thrawn fans, yeah.
So we see a fleet. And we see a Star Destroyer, but it's from the top, so we don't get to see the bottom. And I'm like, man, is that the Chimera? So it turns out it's not the Chimera. There's a Star Destroyer, and then there's a bunch of Venator class ships.
Yeah.
So there was 4 Venator class dreadnoughts, like kind of underneath it. So presumably that's an entire attack fleet for the Empire. And they're in some meeting, right? And in the meeting, like, she's pitching the TIE Defender. And she's like, oh, it's going to have shields, it's going to have this, it's going to have that. And basically, at the end of it, like, one of the Moffs gets up and is like, thank you for your time, but this was stupid. Like, we don't want anything to do with this. And then they all walk out. And she's, like, super upset. And then Captain Pelion comes up. Second live action look at Captain Pelion, because we saw him in the Dark Council, or the Shadow Council during Mandalorian Season 3. But for those of you guys who don't realize, Captain Pelion was a character that came to the surface in the original Thrawn trilogy back before Disney took over. So this is a different version of Thrawn, basically. And in that trilogy, Captain Pelion was one of the leaders of the attack fleet that was by the Death Star on Endor. And he was there, and he watched as, like, they got their butts kicked, and he was one of the many kind of, like, residual commanders, right? But he ends up working underneath Thrawn after that point and basically becomes his number 2. And apparently, like, it's supposed to be like a Sherlock Holmes, and what's Sherlock's number 2? I can't think of his name.
Yeah, don't ask me, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But like, it's supposed to be like Sherlock Holmes, and his number 2 is supposed to be like Thrawn and Captain Pelion, right?
Yeah.
So Captain Pelion walks up to Morgan and is like, you know, we were really interested in who you are, and I've been tasked with finding individuals with unique sets of skills, and it's kind of like really vague, but then he like leaves, and you're like what the hell was up with
I know. And then he shows up again, right? And then we see what's his name, Rook.
Yeah. So I guess the backstory was apparently she was going there to pitch something, and she had basically informed the people of Corvus. Is that what it's called?
I think it's Corvus.
The people of Corvus, like, hey, I'm going to get potentially this big business deal from the Empire.
Which, side note, they were so lame when she didn't get it. Like, I can see why Morgan and Elsbeth, like, hated that. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, what? You didn't get the big deal with the Empire? What? And they're like all complaining and like ridiculing her in the streets. It went into like nighttime, if I remember right. Yeah, and then they're like still like she was
getting heckled. Yeah, so she gets heckled for it, and then she goes and she stands, and it's kind of cool because we see the same bell that Ahsoka chops in half with her lightsaber as she kills somebody.
Whoever her guards are too, those guys are dope.
Oh yeah, they are dope. And so we got to see all of the same droids and guards and mercenaries that we saw from Mandalorian, right?
Yeah,
season 2, I think, for that one. And so she's standing up there, and then all of a sudden, like, she gets attacked by Rook, right? Yeah. And she ends up getting in this fight with Rook. And so like, Rook, for like, those of you guys from Rebels will remember him, but he's a Nogri. And that storyline extends way back into the original Thrawn story as well, where Thrawn essentially learned from the Emperor that him and Vader, so Palpatine and Vader, went to this planet where the Nogri were from, and I'm blanking on what it's called, but they went to this planet and basically subjugated an entire species. And all of them turned into basically their specialty was they were extremely, like, gifted at hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. So basically Vader and Palpatine enslaved the Nogri and turned them into commando squads. And they would go around the galaxy and do their thing. But Thrawn took a personal Nogri to be his number 2, and it was Rook, right? You know what's crazy? In the books, Rook actually betrays Thrawn and kills him. He's the one who kills him. Yeah.
What?
Princess Leia ends up going to the Nogri home planet and, like, unveiling how Vader and Palpatine basically manipulated them and enslaved them. The word gets out. Rook finds out, he's pissed, and so he kills.
Dude, you would not want to piss that guy off.
Thrawn. Yeah, you would not.
He is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But to Morgan Elsbeth's credit, she won the fight.
I know. Do you think that's believable? I don't.
What are you saying that Thrawn went to Rook and was like, test her, but only give her 80% of your ability?
Actually, they kind of did say they did that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
I didn't
like,
hear that.
because she was about to finish him off, and then Captain Pelion was like, you can stop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
But I wonder if she actually kicked his ass or not.
She certainly held up pretty well, but but Rook landed some blows.
Yeah.
Like she got thrown to the ground a few times and was in some trouble. But it was kind of cool. So like Pelion shows up and he's like, "All right, like
You passed.
you passed the test.
You're really smart and you can fight."
Rook just jumps off the wall. It's just like,
I'm done.
It's like, Captain Pelion's probably like, "Dude, the ship's this way. Where are you?"
It's like away from you.
But then Thrawn shows up.
Yeah.
And dude, there's just like I don't know
so
what
awesome.
it is, but like Thrawn just has a presence
Yeah.
in Star Wars content that just does it for me every single time.
I'm
always in for more Thrawn content.
Oh, absolutely. In Rebels, when they were kind of marrying the two live action Obi-Wan Kenobi characters, like they kind of did that with Thrawn in this. Did you notice that? They made him like
a little chunkier.
Yeah,
he was. I didn't even notice
just like
that.
slightly,
just slightly more chunky.
just slightly. We're not like trying to body shame, but just like Thrawn is like a very fit dude who is very capable in hand-to-hand combat. And then when we saw him in live action, that just wasn't the case, So they kind of married the two Thrawns a little bit.
Do you think there's any chance Thrawn comes back for Ahsoka season 2 a little lighter under some public pressure?
Thrawn at that point was dealing with some health issues.
Yes.
He had a bummed knee, so he didn't get to exercise with his droids like he normally does.
Thrawn went on Ozempic for a little while, just in time for season 2 of Ahsoka.
Just like in the middle of like the season, it's like Ozempic. Thrawn uses it.
So Thrawn appears, and he has this basic conversation with Morgan. And what was kind of interesting, and we didn't even get to this, but in the original Captain Pelion conversation that they had aboard the Star Destroyer, he basically asks her, like, why do you want to do this? And her response is for the Empire.
Yeah.
And then Thrawn basically is like, I'm going to give you one more chance to answer this question. Why did you do this? And then she goes, for revenge.
Yeah.
And then immediately, like, Thrawn's like on board.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm totally down for this. Like, but I thought that whole scene was epic.
It was cool.
The last episode was like, it was whatever. Basically, one of the former citizens who's become a Republic agent basically shows up.
A little
with
snooty.
6 rifles.
Yeah.
6 rifles to take on a mercenary compound. Like,
yeah, no.
That was doomed to failure from the start. And
Right.
and the dude who's like leading the city straight up told her, like, don't go in there. This is a terrible idea.
I know. She was kind of stuck up, huh? She kind of sucked. And even Morgan Elsbeth called her out. She's like, you thought you were too good for the city and you went off, and now you're coming back here.
Yeah,
so I thought that was kind of cool.
So at the very end, the Republic agent kind of like hands a communicator to the dude who's in charge of all the regular citizens, and presumably that's Ahsoka's voice we hear.
Oh, I
on
didn't
the
think
other
about
end
that.
of the comm. So we hear something on the other end of the comm, and at that point, like
That's a good pickup,
there's
Jay.
like like it gets cut off, but presumably like with that comm, that would have at least kind of like alerted Ahsoka to the fact that there was something going on in that planet.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly
point.
she would have identified Ahsoka would have probably ran some sort of reconnaissance and quickly found out at that point that Morgan was working directly with Thrawn.
That's a great point.
And that would have led to well, actually, at this point, this was the New Republic, so they had skipped together.
They had skipped.
forward.
Yeah, they had skipped a little bit.
But at the same time, like she would have done some research on that situation and identified like Morgan was making the TIE Defender for Thrawn. And like
Right.
what I really appreciated,
Regardless, she has a close tie to Thrawn.
yes,
Yeah.
to tie the whole story, like if you had to really kind of like tie together what the purpose of that episode, that whole 3-episode arc was, because Morgan's dead.
Right.
It's why was Morgan,
Yeah,
so
who was she?
passionate
Right.
about trying to help the Night Sisters from this other galaxy show up, right? The
Yeah.
Night Mothers, right? That and it became pretty clear it's because she literally watched her people become executed. Why was she working directly with Thrawn? We just assumed it was like some random infrastructure thing. No, Thrawn's pet project was the TIE Defender. If you watched Rebels, that was a big part of it. We can even extend it further to the Thrawn books, where we know that Thrawn was like regularly advocating with the higher levels of the Imperial government, including the Emperor himself,
Right.
to basically to get funds for the TIE Defender. And the Death Star project was trying to take those funds and he was trying to fight against that.
Yeah.
And so like it really did kind of like just establish some of the backstory behind Thrawn and Elsbeth, which I really like.
Dude, that's a great synopsis, because like I didn't think about it like that. I had made those links, but I didn't really understand the gravity of it until you said that.
All right, guys, that's all we have for this one. We'll be back in a couple of days, we'll probably release it right away, but we'll be back for the Barasafi episode. We'll see you guys then.
Thanks a lot.